Nechemiah, chapter 2, Vahi b'chodesh Nisan. So now we've gone from Kislev to Nisan. It is April or so. Shnat Esrim la'artach shatsta hamelech yayin lefanav be'aset hayayin ve'nel hamelech v'lo hayiti ra lefanav. So it's a few months later, and I'm standing there in front of Artaxerxes, the king, and I'm serving wine before him, and I'm giving to the king, and I've been there with him, and I've tried to hold it together. Vayomer li hamelech madua panecha ra'im v'ata eincha chole ein zekim roa lev v'ira harbe mod. And here we see a king. God bless him. I think back to the time, a long time ago, we learned about Elimelech Cohen, who sees Chana, and he thinks that she's drunk when she's really praying. He can't tell the difference between sincerity and drunkenness. That's how you know when somebody. But here, the king, God bless this king. He sees that Nechemiah there's something wrong with him, and he says, you've looked bad. You're not sick, so what's bothering you? And I was scared, Nechemiah said. Omar lamelech, hamelech laolam yichya madua lo yeru panai asher ha'ir beit kvarot avotai chareva ushe'areha uklu va'esh. And I was scared, I was terrified, but this was my moment. Right? We talk about moments in the Tanakh. Mordechai to Esther. You are the one who's in the palace. You are the one who has to go to the king. Here, Nechemiah seizes his moment, and it's carpe diem, right? And he starts, always smart, may the king live forever. If you ever meet with Donald Trump, the first thing to do is say something great about him. How should I not look bad when the city of the graveyard of my ancestors lies in ruins and the gates have been destroyed by fires? Vayomer li hamelech al ma zeh ata mivakesh ve'etpalel el Elohei hashamayim. The king said to me, so what should we do? What do you request? Right? And he's thinking, I prayed to God. Va'omar lamelech im al hamelech tov v'im yitav avdecha lefanecha asher tishalcheni el Yuda el ir kvarot avotai ve'evnena. And I answered, I said, if it pleases the king, I would like to go to Jerusalem. Send me to Judah. Send me to the city of my ancestors. Send me to their graves to rebuild it. Va'yomer li hamelech v'hashegal yoshevet etzlo matai yeh mahalachecha umatai tashuv vayitab lifnei hamelech vayishalcheni vetno li lo zman. And so he's sitting here, Nechemiah, and he's together with his royal consort, the queen, or some other woman, and he says, "How long will you be gone? Well, when will you return?" And I gave him a date, and he was okay with it. V'omar lamelech im al hamelech tov. Right, sounds like the book of Esther. Igrot yitnu li al pachavot ever hanar asher ya'ava. Ya'aviruni ad asher avo el Yuda. And I said to the king, if it pleases the king, can I have letters for the governors of the provinces beyond the river, directed them to grant me passage until I reach Judah? Ezra had problems with that. The people in the beginning, earlier in the Second Temple period, had problems with that and the dangers of the journey. And he's not asking for guardians. He's not asking for protectors here. He's just asking for everybody to know that he's going on a mission of the king, and that presumably will protect him. Vigeret el asaf shomer hapardes asher lamelech asher yitem li etzim lekarot et sha'arei habira asher labait v'lechomat ha'ir v'labait asher avo elav v'yitem li hamelech yad Elohai hatova alai. And I asked him for letters for Asaph, the keeper of the king's park, to give me timber for roofing and gatehouses. Right, I'm going to rebuild the temple fortresses and the city walls, and the king gave me them. And thanks to my God's care for me, right? And a way that Nechemiah understands, as we said in the chapter 1, is God is working through his messengers, his emissaries, right? And we see a lot of that again. Ezra here, Nechemiah, back in Megillat Esther. Vavo el pachavot ever anar vetna lahem et igrot hamelech vayishalach imi hamelech sarechayel ufarashim. When I came to the governors of the province beyond the river, I gave them the king's letters. The king also sent army officers and cavalry with me. So here we see this is something that Nechemiah doesn't even ask for. but the king is sending them with him. And it's again showing this idea that the king is a messenger of God. And so he has all of the proper letters and all of the haskamot, and he's ready to build Jerusalem, to build its walls, to help the community that is struggling there. But it's never so easy. Verse 10, Pasuk Yud Vaishma, San Valat ha-Roni, Vitovia ha'eved ha'amoni, Vayera lahem ra'agdola asher ba'adam levakesh tova levnei Yisrael. But when Sanballat, the Choronite, and Tovia, the Ammonite, they heard, it bothered them greatly that somebody was coming to help the position of the Jewish people. Why is this exactly? We don't know exactly why it bothered them. Maybe as long as the Jewish people were down and they didn't have a strong community, these other peoples maybe could be more in control. Let's continue. So I'm in Jerusalem. I'm there for 3 days. And he says, I got up in the middle of the night with a few men. I didn't tell anybody what my plan was, what I was going to do to Jerusalem. And I didn't have any animals, just the horse or whatever that I rode in. The Eitzav Bishar Hagai, Laila V'el Pnei Ein Hatanin V'el Shara Ashpot V'Ish Shover B'Chomot Yerushalayim Asher Hein Prutzim U'She'areha Uchlu Va'esh. Recognize some names, right? I went out at the Valley Gate at night, towards the Jackal Spring and the Dung Gate, and I looked all around the walls of Jerusalem that were breached and where fire had consumed its walls and its gates. I went to the fountain gate and to the king's pool where there was no room for the animal under me to continue. I went up to the wadi by night, surveying the wall, entering again by the valley gate. I returned. Right, he's going at night. He doesn't want anybody to know what his plans are. Maybe he's heard. He's told us as the readers that Sanballat is not happy about it, but he doesn't want anybody else to know about it, which we're told in verse 16. The Hasaganim lo yadu ana halachtu ma ani oseh layudim v'lakohanim v'lachorim v'laskanim v'layeter oseh amlacha ad kain lo higadati. Nobody knew anything of what I was going to do. I hadn't divulged it to the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the prefects, to anybody. V'omar alehem in verse 17, I said to them in Pasuk Yud Zayin, Atem roim hara asher anachnu va asher Yerushalayim chareva u'she'areha nitztu va'esh l'chu v'nivnet chomat Yerushalayim v'lo niyeh od cherpa. And I said to them, look at the terrible state, look at the destruction. Jerusalem is still destroyed. Its gates are still consumed. They still look like they were burned in the fire. So let's rebuild the wall of Jerusalem and let's not be any more a disgrace and embarrassment. V'agid lahem et yad Elohai asher hi tova alai v'af divrei hamelech asher amar li. Vayomru nakum uvaninu vayichazku yedeim latov. I told them of how God had taken care of me and how God had given me the king's approval. And the king said to me and gave me these, letters and is going to allow it to happen. And what do they say? Let's start building. They were encouraged by his benevolence. You can read it either way, either the king or God or both. And here we see something that's important. We go think back of the great building projects in Jewish history, the Mishkan, and I would say the Beit HaMikdash. The Mishkan is a community project of everybody, and everybody, it's Nadiv Lev. Whoever wants to do it goes and does it. When Shlomo builds the Beit HaMikdash, it's much more complex. Shlomo sort of enslaves the people. Same language that's used with Shlomo is used with Paro. Misim is the same word that's used, that eventually in some ways causes, when his son continues to tax the Jewish people and the great building projects are over, it's more of a Shlomo building project, the way it's presented, the way it's done, than it is the Jewish people's project. Now, it's a much larger project than the Mishkan in Yerushalayim, so there are differences between them, but here, it's almost like going back to the Moshe model. He says he's the salesman to the people, and they say, let us go and build. It's going to be all of their building project. However, again, it's never so easy. Pasuk Yutet, verse 19, Vaishma, Sanballat ha'choroni, v'tovia ha'eved ha'amoni, The Geshem Ha'aravi, now we have a third guy introduced. Vayelagu lanu vayivzu aleinu vayarmu ma davar azer sharatem osim ha'ala melech atem mordim Sanballat and Tovia, and now we have Geshem. And what do they say to us? They say to us, what are you doing? Are you rebelling against the king? Vashivotam davar v'omar lehem Elohei hashamayim uyatzliach lanu v'anachnu avadav nakum uvaninu v'lachem in chelek utztaka v'zikaron b'Yerushalayim. I said to them, the God of heaven will grant us success, and we, his servants, will start building. But you have no share or claim to a stake in Jerusalem. Presumably, when he told them this, at the same time, he also showed them that he had these letters, that he had permission from the kings. Right, in the last book, in the book of Ezra, they came and they started to build, and then Ezra started his reforms, and the people said, you can't do this. And they had to send, letters had to be sent back. Sorry, that was during the time of Ezra, that was during the Darius, that's Ezra's referring to what happened around the year 518, 519, under Zerubbabel. But here he has the letters. And this is, again, something we pointed out in these books here, which we've seen. There are people who seem to sort of want to do this project together with the Jews. But the Jews have to recognize who they are, what they are, and they have to do their projects on their own. They're not going to allow the Shomronim, the Samaritans, at the time, back in 538, when they're first coming back, they're not going to let people in 517, they're not going to allow others in 457, and here around the year 446 or so, before the Common Era, we believe. And this is the project for us. And so here, Nechemiah is very strong and able to get the Jews to want to build this, to stop the disgrace, to rebuild Jerusalem, and let's see how their success will come about. We'll see that in chapter 3 as they begin their big building project.